The wisdom of Proverbs: when emotions are loud, a city can survive a storm. What it cannot survive is a gate that opens every time the wind makes noise. Proverbs 25:28 says, "A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls." For years I heard that verse as a warning to control myself better. Be calmer. Be stronger. Do not react. But the image is more human than that. A city with walls is not a dead city. Inside are arguments and weddings, grief and laughter, markets opening before sunrise, children running through streets, old men remembering what used to stand on a corner. The walls do not remove life, they keep every movement inside the city from becoming a command to open the gate. That is what wisdom does when emotions are loud. Anger can reveal a wound and still rewrite the history around it. Fear can notice danger and still make the body suffer tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. Desire can be honest and still make one piece of evidence feel heavier than 5 warnings. Even a true sentence can become destructive when spoken at the wrong time by a heart that is still trying to win. Proverbs does not ask you to become less human. It asks a harder question. When something inside you becomes loud, who decides what happens next? Before you send the message, accept the offer, refuse the request, confront the person, or walk away, that question matters. Strong emotion can make a choice feel obvious long before it has become wise. The gate is not the enemy of feeling. A gate is not a grave. It does not bury the traveler who arrives. It creates a place to stop, look, listen, and ask what the traveler is carrying before the whole city rearranges itself around his arrival. That is a better picture of emotional wisdom than the 2 choices many of us learned. Some were taught to swallow everything, even when keeping peace meant disappearing. Others learned to call immediate expression honesty. Both can become dangerous. One locks the heart. The other gives every visitor a key. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life." The command is active. It is not numbness. A guarded spring is still water. A guarded heart is still alive. The point is not to stop feeling. The point is to stop assuming every feeling has interpreted reality correctly. A feeling can tell you something important without telling you everything. Anger may tell you that something crossed a line. It cannot tell you why the other person did it. Fear may tell you that something matters. It cannot see every ending. Relief may tell you that pressure has dropped. It cannot always tell you whether you found peace or merely escaped discomfort. I have confused those things before. I once felt so uneasy about a decision that I kept telling myself the uneasiness had to be God warning me. Only later did I admit that part of the fear was simpler. I did not want to be misunderstood. The feeling was real. The interpretation was mixed. That admission changed the way I pray. I stopped asking only, "How do I make this feeling go away?" and began asking, "What is this feeling noticing, and what is it adding?" Those are different questions. An emotion arrives at the gate with a report. Wisdom listens to the report. Then wisdom checks the report against truth, character, counsel, time, and the word of God. The messenger matters, but the messenger does not become king. There is dignity in naming what is present without making it a command. I am angry. I am afraid. I want this badly. Honesty like that is not weakness. It creates room for wisdom. Pretending can make emotion stronger underground. Immediate obedience can make it dangerous above ground. Naming what is present lets you ask a second question. What remains truthful and faithful even if the outcome is still unclear? Sometimes that room is only 10 seconds long. Your hand is on the door handle before a difficult conversation. Your chest is tight. You can already hear the speech you want to give. Wisdom may begin with recognizing, I am entering this room angry. I need to tell the truth. But I may be tempted to tell more than the truth. That distinction matters. The gate is not the enemy of feeling. The gate is where feeling learns that being heard is not the same as being obeyed. And nowhere is that lesson more urgent than with anger. because anger does not only increase volume, it changes the way memory tells the story. Anger edits the archive. Anger has an archivist. The moment you feel wronged, something inside the mind runs to the back room and begins pulling files. The comment from this morning is placed beside the argument from last year. The forgotten birthday appears. The time you were embarrassed in front of other people returns with perfect lighting. A sentence you thought you had forgiven becomes suddenly available word for word. Within minutes, one event is no longer standing alone. It is surrounded by exhibits. That is one reason anger feels so certain. It rarely arrives carrying only the present. Proverbs 14:29 says, "Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly." The contrast is not simply between a calm person and an emotional person. It is between speed and understanding. Anger moves quickly because speed protects its first interpretation from being questioned. When the archive opens, memory becomes selective. You remember every time they failed you and temporarily lose access to every time they did not. You remember your intention and their impact. You remember their words and your wounds, but not always your tone. A bad moment becomes a pattern. A pattern becomes a character judgment. Soon, "You did this" becomes "You always do this." And then, "This is who you are." I know that movement because I have made it. I have walked into a conversation carrying one legitimate complaint, and, somewhere between the first sentence and the third, turned it into a biography of the other person. By the time I finished, I was no longer asking them to answer for what happened that day. I was making them answer for every old wound that had found a chair in the room. 10 years forced into 10 minutes. Proverbs 19:11 says, "Good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense." Overlooking an offense does not mean pretending nothing happened. Proverbs is not asking people to remain in harm or erase accountability. The verse honors the ability to see an offense without immediately allowing that offense to become the whole truth about a person. That takes strength. Anger prefers total language because total language feels safe. If the other person is entirely wrong, I do not have to examine my own reaction. If this always happens, I do not have to distinguish the past from the present. Certainty saves me from asking a question that might complicate the case. Wisdom lets complexity back into the room. What actually happened? What belongs to today? And what belongs to an older injury? Am I responding to this person or to several people whose voices I can still hear through them? Those questions are not excuses for bad behavior. They protect a current wound from carrying more history than it owns. Sometimes anger is protecting something frightened. The bark is at the gate, but the trembling is deeper in the house. Wisdom still has to decide what the moment requires: a boundary, an apology, distance, a direct question, or simply refusing to make one event carry 10 years of evidence. The work can be quiet. Write down what happened today before writing the whole history. Refuse the words always and never for one night. Do not make a permanent decision while your memory is still pulling boxes from the archive. Anger is not evil because it remembers. The danger is that it can remember like a lawyer who has already chosen a verdict. Wisdom slows the trial down, and when the archive becomes quiet enough to close, another voice often takes over. Anger looks backward and gathers evidence. Fear looks forward and begins charging the body for events that have not happened yet. Fear makes the body pay tomorrow today. There are mornings when nothing terrible has happened, and yet the body wakes as if it has already survived bad news. The result is not back. The conversation has not taken place. The decision has not been made. The person has not left. Still, the shoulders are tight before breakfast. Food is in the mouth, but there is almost no taste. Water boils in the kettle and is forgotten. You read the same sentence twice because the mind is somewhere in a future that does not exist yet. Fear is not only a thought about tomorrow, it is often tomorrow collecting payment from the body today. Proverbs 12:25 says, "Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. The verse gives anxiety weight. It bends posture, changes breathing, and pulls a possible future into the present as if rehearsal could make suffering safer. I have replayed a future conversation so often that when I finally saw the person, my body had already argued with them 20 times. They walked into one conversation, I walked into the 21st. No wonder I was tired. Fear does not always invent impossible things. Its more convincing move is to promote possibility into certainty. This could go wrong becomes this will go wrong. They have not answered becomes they are pulling away. The doctor wants another test becomes I already know what this means. Wisdom is not denial. Proverbs 22:3 says, "The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it." Prudence responds to danger that can actually be named. Fear keeps creating additional doors in the wall and exhausting itself trying to lock them all. The difference is not whether you feel afraid, the difference is whether fear can tell the difference between information and imagination. One useful question in a loud moment is painfully plain. What has actually happened? Sometimes the answer is, enough has happened that I need to act. Make the appointment. Ask the direct question. Check the bank account instead of imagining the number. Seek help. Leave the unsafe room. Prudence is not passivity. Other times the answer is, nothing new has happened in the last 3 hours. I am making my body attend an event that has not begun. Then wisdom may look ordinary. Finish the meal. Put tomorrow's question on paper. Return to today's task. Go to sleep if there is no faithful action left tonight. Call the person who helps you return to facts. Fear hates small acts because fear wants the whole future solved. Proverbs train something more modest, the ability to recognize the next faithful step without pretending to own the whole road. I once thought preparing for every possible pain made me responsible. Eventually, I had to admit that some of my preparation was only pre-suffering. I was paying interest on disasters that had not happened. That realization did not remove fear. It gave fear a boundary. You can warn me. You cannot make me live the funeral before the loss. When fear loses the authority to turn possibilities into prophecies, the present becomes larger again. You can taste food, hear another person, pray without using prayer only to demand a guarantee. Fear is not the only emotion that can make a decision feel obvious. Another one does it without frightening you at all. Desire can make the evidence you prefer feel heavier than the evidence you need to face. Desire changes the weight of evidence. Desire does not need to erase evidence. It only needs to change the scale. One encouraging sign begins to outweigh 3 serious concerns. One warm conversation becomes heavier than a repeated pattern. One promise carries more emotional force than months of behavior. Nothing has disappeared. The weights have changed. Proverbs 18:17 says, "The one who states his case first seems right, until the other comes and examines him." In its immediate setting, the proverb is courtroom wisdom about the danger of hearing only one side. That logic also gives us a useful mirror for desire. The first story we want to believe can feel complete until it is examined. Desire resists examination. When examination threatens the picture it has already begun to love, a new opportunity appears after a long season of feeling overlooked. The title sounds good, the timing feels meaningful. Someone finally sees what you can do. Meanwhile, the unclear expectations, unstable leadership, or cost to your family begin to feel strangely lighter. Or a relationship begins when loneliness has been especially heavy. Kindness feels brighter because of what came before it. That does not make the kindness false. It means hunger can assign permanent meaning to temporary relief before time has had a chance to tell the truth. Proverbs 19:2 says, "Desire without knowledge is not good, and whoever makes haste with his feet misses his way." Desire itself is not the enemy. You can want companionship, meaningful work, healing, recognitions, rest, or a new beginning without shame. The danger begins when wanting something changes the rules by which you evaluate it. That is why the better question is not only, how much do I want this? Ask, what evidence has become lighter because I want this? What fact am I explaining away? What pattern would concern me if I were hearing this story from a friend? What detail do I rush past when I tell the story because slowing down would change the atmosphere? Those questions do not kill desire, they restore the scale. Before deciding, let the concerns keep their full weight. Put them into plain words. Do not reduce them because the outcome is attractive. The answer may still be yes. The opportunity may be good. The relationship may be healthy. The risk may be worth taking. Wisdom is not suspicious of joy. It simply refuses to let hunger become the hand holding the weights. The inner life can use a false scale without admitting it. We can keep every fact on the table while quietly changing what each fact is allowed to weigh. And even after we notice that distortion, one problem remains. We are still standing inside our own story. We need someone who does not need our preferred ending. Wisdom invites a witness before a verdict. I once asked several people for advice about something I wanted badly. 2 of them raised concerns. I argued with both. A third person agreed with me, and I immediately felt peaceful. Later, I had to ask myself a difficult question. Did I receive wisdom, or did I finally find agreement? That question stayed with me because there are stories we tell differently depending on what answer we want. We may not lie. We choose emphasis. We explain what they did in detail and summarize what we did in one sentence. We describe how long we waited, but not the promise we made in anger. We explain every reason an opportunity makes sense, then mention the warning sign quickly, almost as if speed can make it smaller. Wise counsel can feel uncomfortable before it feels helpful. Proverbs 15:22 says, "Without counsel plans fail, but with many advisors they succeed." That does not mean collecting opinions until a majority vote becomes God's will. It means having enough humility to let a plan be examined by people who do not need your preferred ending. A good counselor should be able to love you without needing to agree with you. Another time, while telling someone about a conflict, I realized I had made myself the most reasonable person in every scene. They asked only, "What did you say right before that happened?" I did not like the question. That was partly why I needed it. Emotion narrows vision. Counsel gives another conscience room to ask where the frame has been cropped. Proverbs 12:15 says, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." Folly is not always stupidity. Sometimes it is the inability to imagine that our first reading of the moment may be incomplete. Choose counsel carefully. Look for steadiness, honesty, and a life that shows Scripture has corrected them too. Then tell the unedited version, the fact that weakens your case, what you fear losing, and what you already know but wish you did not know. A witness before a verdict can save you from turning emotion into evidence and evidence into certainty. Sometimes that witness will confirm what you sensed. Yes, speak. Yes, leave. No, you are not imagining the pattern. Wise counsel is not designed to make you distrust yourself forever. Other times, one question will slow the whole city down. That slowing matters, because even after emotion has been examined, facts have been weighed, and counsel has been received, one final danger remains. You may reach a true conclusion and still damage the conversation by choosing the wrong time to deliver it. Truth needs a time to arrive. Not every true sentence is ready to be spoken the moment it becomes clear in your mind. Immediate speech can feel like courage. The facts are there. The heart is full. Why wait? Because timing changes what a sentence becomes inside a relationship. Proverbs 15:23 says, "To make an apt answer is a joy to a man, and a word in season, how good it is." Proverbs 25:11 adds, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver." Wisdom is concerned not only with whether speech is true, but whether truth is fitted to the moment in which it arrives. The same sentence can become something different in a different room. A correction spoken privately may protect dignity. In public, it may humiliate. A hard truth spoken after both people have slept may open a conversation. Shouted while both are flooded with anger, it may become a weapon. Timing does not make truth less true. It affects what truth is able to do when it arrives. I learned this slowly. There were times I was proud that I had finally told the truth, only to realize later that I had chosen the exact moment when the other person was least able to hear it. Part of me wanted clarity. Another part wanted advantage. That is difficult to admit. Proverbs 17:27 says, "Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding." A cool spirit is not an empty spirit. It can still say no, confront dishonesty, refuse manipulation, or end a conversation that has become unsafe. The difference is that truth is no longer powered by the need to discharge emotion. Sometimes wisdom says, "Speak now." Silence can become cowardice. Delay can protect comfort instead of truth. Other times wisdom says, "Not yet." Not because the truth is less true, but because your hands are shaking, the room is public, exhaustion has made everyone harsher, or the message is mainly designed to stop the other person from answering back. Wait long enough to ask what the sentence is for. Is it meant to clarify, protect, repair, or hold someone accountable? Or do you mainly need the other person to feel how much you hurt? Human motives are rarely pure. Wisdom does not wait for perfect motives. It gives enough light for the most destructive motive to stop choosing the timing in secret. There is courage in waiting until your voice belongs to you again. Not the angry voice prosecuting 10 years at once. Not the fearful voice trying to control a future no one can guarantee. Not the hungry voice changing the weight of every fact. Your voice, a voice that can say, "That hurt me," without turning pain into a verdict about a person's whole identity. A voice that can set a boundary without revenge, or admit, "I was wrong," without explaining why you were almost right. That is governed speech, not silence, not niceness, not emotional disappearance. Truth with a time. By now, the image from Proverbs 25 has grown larger than self-control in the narrow sense. The city is not protected because everyone learns to speak softly. It is protected because no loud voice inside is allowed to rule the whole city. The city is alive, but the keys are not lying in the street. Keep the keys. Keep the heart. The next loud moment may not feel wise. Your chest may tighten. An old memory may arrive before you invite it. Fear may move into tomorrow. Desire may begin making its case. A true sentence may stand at the back of your throat, ready to leave before you are ready to speak it. You do not have to punish yourself for that. You are human. The city in Proverbs is alive. That is the point. Wisdom was never meant to turn the heart into an empty fortress where nothing enters and nothing matters. The walls exist because something inside is worth protecting. So stand at the gate for one honest moment, not to silence everything, and not to interrogate yourself until you become afraid of your own feelings. Pause long enough to test what is true. Then take the clean step that is available now and leave the outcome open. The step may be a question, an appointment, a night of sleep, a boundary, an apology, or the decision not to send the message yet. It does not have to solve the whole road. It only has to remain truthful and faithful, even if the circumstances do not change tomorrow. That is not emotional coldness. It is mature love. Love for truth. Love for the people who must live with the words you choose. Love for the God who gave you a heart worth guarding, not hiding. Write this in the comments. Wisdom, teach me what deserves the keys. Then carry that prayer into the next loud moment. The gate does not have to close forever. The city does not have to become silent. A living heart can remain open and still let wisdom hold the keys.